How do you like the sign?
I love the sign, man. Okay, here we go. Good evening, folks. It's Wednesday, October 22nd. You're over the hump, and you are listening to the Empower Hour with me, Don Wyckoff. Now, if you didn't know, the purpose of this show is to teach people that it is never too late, and it's certainly never too early to make a positive life change, to take a different path, connect to your passions, and live your life to the fullest while staying true to who you are. Now, joining me tonight is a former Senate candidate, founder and CEO of the Mobility Independence Foundation, and he is the focus of a new award winning documentary, The Power to Move. He has been beating the odds in so many ways through perseverance, determination, and an absolute refusal to accept being brushed aside by corporate greed and disinterested legislators. Stick around, folks. You're going to learn about some serious problems our country faces, but you will be moved and inspired to see how this one man and his assembled team of experts from around the country have created a new empowering path forward. Mr. Tom Queter, how you doing, sir?
I am still alive despite our healthcare system. That's how I'm doing.
Indeed. Now, I have seen the documentary twice already, and I can attest this is one powerful film, but since the documentary has yet to be released to the public, can you give us a little background on who you are and what you've been up against, well, since birth? And if you could do that in 10 minutes, that'd be great.
Since birth in 10 minutes. Wow,
Wow.
that's rough.
Yeah.
So I was born in 1983 in Sydney, New York, a small rural hospital, and luckily pretty quickly diagnosed by someone who just happened to do the residency at a clinic for my condition, osteogenesis imperfecta. Pardon me.
That's one of
Um,
those better known as, or commonly known, I should say, as brittle bone disease, right?
yeah.
You've had a few fractures over your time.
I'm pushing 2,000 right now, which is over four times Evel Knievel's entire stuntman career.
That's not bad, Tom. Not bad. 2,000 fractures.
Yeah.
Now, I, I mean, seems like a silly question, but I've seen you go through this, and you don't really show that you're in a lot of pain. Is it because you're just so used to having to deal with this?
I'm getting a noise. Are you getting a noise?
No, sir.
Okay. It's gone. I don't know what that was.
Hmm.
Modern technology, beeps and bloops. Um, so can you repeat that, please? I was distracted by
Well,
whatever
yeah,
that
no,
noise
that's
was.
okay. You said for folks that are listening, they probably don't know the term osteogenesis imperfecta, and it is more commonly known as brittle bone disease. And you yourself have said you have had over 2,000 fractures in your life.
Yep.
How do you deal with that? And I got to imagine that's a painful existence in that regard.
You know, my take on pain and hardship is different from most people. Um, Obviously, I was born with broken bones. I had broken bones before I was born that were healed when I was born. Um, I've been breaking bones all of my life, and pain is an interesting thing, particularly humans who have the cognitive ability to discern it and what it means and
Hmm.
where it is. Um, I mostly view the pain that I suffer, if you want to use that word, as information.
Interesting.
By the time I was a small child, I was able to actually tell the doctors where the fracture was and what it would look like on the X-ray, and I would be correct.
Hmm.
Um, and so I have this kind of mental map in my mind, right? I did a lot of AutoCAD in high school and the 1 year of college that I did. And if you know anything about 3D modeling or drafting, you know what a wireframe is.
Hmm.
And I can see my skeleton as a wireframe. In fact, I can still, if I think about it, I can pinpoint and know my old fracture sites.
Over 2,000 of them. Hmm.
The worst ones stand out better, but yes.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, pain has become information. The suffering does not come from the pain of the broken bone. Um, I have a anger reaction to situations where I break either. I hate to say more important bones, but bones that cause more disruption to your life, right? If you break a femur, you've got to baby that. There's going to be a lot less you're going to do, even if you're sitting in a wheelchair.
Hmm.
Of course, my arms are important to me, so when they break, that's upsetting because the first thing that happens to me is that I think about what I have planned to do, what I have committed to do, the work that's ahead of me for the next 3 days to 3 months, and how I'm either going to struggle harder to keep up with it, or I might just have to not do it. And so the real anguish, if you will, from a severe injury for me is the lack of ability that comes with it. Uh, I feel the same way about when my wheelchair breaks down, actually. Not
Mm.
anymore, but I used to.
Yeah, and
Um,
this is the whole point of this documentary. We're going to get into that. How important is that chair for your
yeah.
mobility? I mean, obviously we understand that, if you're mobility impaired, you're going to need a wheelchair, but that doesn't really overcome the disability that you experience, right?
Um,
It's not your average chair, I guess is what I should have said. It's very specialized to your situation.
I like to push back on that actually.
Mm,
We tend to have this perception that a powered wheelchair is like this rocket science kind of super techy, hard to repair, hard to build, thing. And the reality is it's not. It's very simple. It's antiquated even these days. Most of the power chairs on the market are still running on tech from the 80s and 90s.
hmm
They evergreen patents, so that way they don't have to go through the approval process again. They don't have to worry about upgrading and safety standards with those upgrades. And it's all very expensive for these companies to do, actually. They spend an awful lot of money just to bring something to market. Um, so, my life from the start to the end. We were talking about the 2000 fractures, right? When I was about 15 or 16 years old, that was when my orthopedic surgeon told me that he tried to count my old fracture sites on a bone density scan or a DEXA scan, which is like a high res X-ray.
hmm
Um, and he said he stopped at 1,000 because he ran out of time. He just couldn't put more time in. And it's a good estimate that I've had about 1,000 since. So that's where that 2,000 number comes from. But
And how are
that
these? I mean, how are you getting these fractures? I mean, what's
That's what
happening?
I'm getting to. That's what I'm getting to. Um, in terms of those first 1,000, especially, I would say that half or better of them were due to equipment malfunction or equipment falling apart.
Hmm.
Um, I had one wheelchair when I was, I think, 12 or 13. They built it to us as this rugged off-road wheelchair for children. And I had only had it in like the front yard and driveways, really local to where I live, for 3 months. And the wheel fell off and dumped me out on the ground, and I had over 100 fractures in an instant.
Wow.
I've had several wheelchairs that took off at full speed on their own. Broke my legs a few times. Um, that was a very interesting situation because when it takes off on its own, you obviously call your provider for the repair tech and you tell them what happened and deal with the insurance. And they all tell you, right? Because I was a child, and so they're telling my parents, that's user error. He's disabled. I don't care if he's been driving a power wheelchair for 10 years. Obviously, he did something wrong. Because with the societal perception, it's very easy to blame me and get out of their liability.
Mm. So
Um,
you have a very specialized wheelchair, and from talking to you, I know that this has been a very expensive setup that you use, right?
well, yes and no. So there's really not a whole lot special about my chair. Um, it uses parts that are off the rack. You can buy them on Amazon. Our suspension system comes out of the trucking industry. They put them in the seats of the driver of the truck so that it spares their spine.
Mm,
Um, it's a basic, trying to remember the right, I'm not an engineer, forgive me here. It's a dual differential transaxle. And what that means is So if you put the chair in the air, right, you prop it up and you turn it to one side, the drive wheels will spin in opposite directions.
Mm,
And that's what that allows that to do. Also allows it to true track at an angle up a steep hill so that you can traverse uh, rougher terrain. And
hmm
I live on the edge of the Catskills. You've seen the property behind my house. I go up there.
Oh, so I guess my question started with this because now you have a chair that, we're going to talk about the development and how you went through making this happen, and that the idea of, an open hardware, kind of similar to the open source idea, so that it's attainable by more people. But up until you did this, you were subjected to dealing with companies. And can you outline, there's a moment in the documentary that just it racked me because I know you and I did not know that there was a 5 year period right around the time that your father passes where they tell you we can't fix it, or it'll take this much time, or insurance problems. Can you kind of go through that, and what was the antecedent for the movement that you're taking now?
Right. So, in general, they won't repair anything that's over 5 years old.
Mm,
And wheelchairs have a breakdown rate of 50% of them in this country in a 6 month period.
mm.
So that means once you hit 5 years old with your machine, you're gonna break down in the next year, and then they're not gonna repair it.
And batteries alone are a nightmare.
Right, right. Yeah. Waiting months for new batteries is
Hmm.
ridiculous. Um, so what that process looks like is arduous. We spend more money in the bureaucracy, all of the appointments, the gas money, the paperwork shuffle to approve a wheelchair or similar mobility device, which
Right.
I do want to quantify. We do not call our machines wheelchairs. They are mobility devices.
Okay.
Um, and there's a specific reason for that. Do you know who decides what is and is not a wheelchair?
Hmm. No.
The FDA.
Ah,
Yeah. They also apparently decide to approve the kinds of wheelchairs that make them worthy of the top 30 most dangerous consumer goods list.
I don't think most people would know that.
Guns don't make that list, Don.
That's insane, man. That is absolutely insane that guns don't make the list. But of course, we know there's a reason for that. There's an interest in there.
Well, it's based on statistical data, Don.
Mm,
It's based on harm and death as recorded through emergency rooms and doctors and hospitals.
right.
So wheelchairs cause more harm than guns statistically.
Mm.
There's only 5.5 million wheelchair users in this country. How many people own guns?
I mean so that's really driving the point home for sure. I shared a story with you a while back about the mayor that wanted to borrow a wheelchair, could have afforded it himself, but because we
Mhm.
lend him out, he was able to give it, and we're happy to help people, right? But he brings it back 2 days later, saying that his wife fell out of the wheelchair because the caster broke. When I asked
Yep.
him how that happened, he said it was a frost heave on a city street. You mean the same city street that you are responsible for, the same sidewalks you're responsible for. He was upset, brought the chair back, and I don't think it dawned on him on how ridiculous what he was saying to me was. And that just underlines the problem. There's nobody paying attention to this.
I would say that to a certain degree, he actually has a point. So the frost heave and sidewalks, right? That's going to happen every single year here.
Yep.
How do you repair that every single year in an economically viable fashion?
Right. Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
And it's a lot easier to make a machine that goes over those months. I've got an interesting story about this too. Um, I not only ran for state senate, I also petitioned to be a ticket for U.S. Senate in 22.
Hmm.
Uh, and that meant that I was petitioning in New York City because there's lots of people and you need lots of signatures. And years, 1 or 2 years after that, I saw this news bit. I think it was NBC or ABC. And they're talking about this 9 year battle between a property owner in New York City and the city over a tree root heave of a sidewalk
Mm.
in front of his property. So what they did was they came in and they put in that sidewalk and they made it the responsibility of the adjacent property owner. But they also don't allow the adjacent property owner to actually repair the sidewalk without significant fees
I
and
was going to say,
applications and
I don't think that would be
right.
easy.
So in this case, they put in the sidewalk and then they put in trees, and trees grow roots. And we've
Hmm.
all seen what roots do when they grow under a sidewalk, right?
Right.
There was a 4-inch solid, straight up concrete bump. I drove over that perfectly without even thinking about it when I was petitioning that same bump.
Mm,
Um, and the reason they were having this battle, legal battle, was because people were tripping and falling down and
mm.
getting taken away in ambulances, right? Now think about this. We built a machine with off-the-rack components that just drives over what hurts ambulatory people.
Yeah, I want to square this up before we go further. So far, what we've been talking about is, the chair that you used to have, you were kind of trapped
Hmm.
because of proprietary rights. They didn't want anybody else fixing it. Their scheduling was so long that you, as a person with a disability, would literally be sitting without the ability to move or interact in nature for months and years at a time. So
Yeah,
that is where you begin to say, there's got to be a better way. And let's start maybe from there on how did you see this playing out? Did you see a chair design in your mind that you wanted to create? Was it something you wanted to adapt? Um, why did you start this process of the open hardware system? And let's kind of talk about what were the steps going through when as you begin to do this. Because right now we're talking about it as if folks know about this chair, but the
right.
documentary will poignantly show how powerful this movement is and the idea behind this is. Common sense idea, by the way, which should have been in place a long time ago. So let's go
Actually,
through.
it was in place a long time ago. The first wheelchairs were built in this manner.
Let's go through it.
Okay, so in 2014, um, wheelchairs can be because of the lack of repair and maintenance that you can't get through systems. They just simply don't do it. If they try, it's usually not appropriate. If you're getting any kind of maintenance for your power chair or even manual wheelchair, consider yourself very lucky.
Hmm.
Um, because as our systems, Medicaid, Medicare, health insurance, have been expected to cover more things for more people, the systems that actually, the other end of that system, the provision that has not grown. So now they're trying to do more things for more people with the same amount of infrastructure.
Hmm.
And that just doesn't work. And that's why, I mean, we've got children who are living more with disabilities. We've got people who are elderly living longer with disability. And so we're not covering that. And then that's what landed me in this situation. Um, my chair at the time was over 5 years old. And I couldn't get it repaired. And I reapplied. This is a chair I'd had 4 or 5 times prior. I'd had the same one since I was 15. And in 2014, which would be 17 years, so I would have been 32. Um, I got denied that chair that was still on the market and told to choose from a range of wheelchairs that would not work for me. One, little to no suspension. I have brittle bones disease. Think about that for a second. Um, Two, I actually tried to make the argument of being able to get over the threshold of my own door to leave the house in case there was a house fire. And that, I was told very directly, was not a worthy justification for a better wheelchair.
Often the people that are denying these appeals are people that, one, don't have a disability, have no direct interactions with folks with disabilities,
And
and
no
they're
choice. No choice. They're following company
I was
policy.
just going to say that they're following policies. It's kind of like when you file for disability, you will be denied,
Yeah.
period. At first, you're going to be denied. It's like that's the status quo of how they deal
Yeah.
with that. It's encouraged. And part of it, I think, is they're hoping either A, people give up or they die and won't
Yeah.
ultimately need the service.
What you just said there is exactly why disabled disability advocates like myself like to call our healthcare system a backdoor eugenics system because it causes unnecessary death. It's very preventable. Um, so we're talking about how did I get this idea? Um, for those 5 years, I was hunting down used parts, trying to get that chair repaired myself, limping it around the house, very, very rarely getting outside of the house, and with extreme assistance, right? Um, and I was looking for parts on places like Craigslist, eBay, wherever you could find used things for sale. And I was using the eBay app. I was looking at a very specific part. And much like today's dating apps, I'm sure most of your audience is familiar with that. Um, the eBay app would show you the like just a little bit of the next item and to make you swipe. So you're looking, right? They're trying to um, control your impulses so that you look at a new item, right? They just like window shopping or
Right.
everything in the aisle when you check out of the grocery store, that they're trying to just make sure that you see it and browse it because the more you see, the more you buy. Anyhow, um, it looked like, from what little I could see, an entire chair, just like what I needed. And I swiped and I looked at it, and it was for sale out of Austin, Texas, for $4,500. Uh, I live on SSI, Don. How much money am I allowed to have
I
in the
was just
bank?
going to say, how unapproachable is $4,500 for anyone, let alone knowing that you have insurance that should be helping you? You qualify, you have the disability, you've shown justification for
Yeah.
cause, and at every turn, they're somehow trying to turn you down. So, what do you do next?
Well, I want to point out something, and it might make me a little unpopular. Everybody loves the ACA because it guarantees you coverage despite your pre-existing
The
conditions.
ACA, define the ACA for
The
me.
Affordable Care Act, or
Okay.
Obamacare, right?
Yep.
Um, what we don't realize is that we don't know what it's guaranteeing.
Right.
I mean, if I guarantee you a piece of garbage, am I really giving you much of a guarantee?
Mm-hmm.
And that's ultimately what it is. They don't tell you what it is. They're guaranteeing coverage, but coverage for what? Right? Coverage for a manual hospital style chair that'll remove your life and your purpose from your existence.
Mm-hmm.
That's not quality health care. And in terms of healthcare systems, I always point this out. We have systems specifically to take care out of the situation, right? Feelings are not allowed in a system. So to call it a healthcare system is an oxymoron. You can call it a health system,
That's a
but
great,
a
great point.
system a system cannot care. Everybody you call in that system might care. In fact, I've got the experience that tells me that most of the people that I've had to call in those situations, whether it's a provider or an insurance company or a medical professional, they usually have something to say along the lines of, I wish I could help you better.
And I believe they do wish they could help you better.
Yeah. Um, so, I saw this wheelchair on eBay. It was not specifically modified for me, but it did happen to have only 16 hours of use.
Mm.
Um, And I took a screenshot of that, and you know me, Don. I have a lot of jokes. It's a coping mechanism, right? Um, you see this in the disability world an awful lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I took a screenshot of it, and this was in May. My birthday's in June, so I posted it on Facebook with some, sarcastic, laughy faces. If anybody has $4,500 plus shipping from Austin, Texas, this is what I'd like for my birthday. It was purely a joke,
Mm-hmm.
purely a joke. Um, the next morning, my CD pap worker, which I only had because of you, Don, by the way.
Great.
I don't know if you know this, but you saved my life. Um,
I'm honored, man, to be a part of any of that, Tom.
you encouraged me to get on the NHTD waiver, and that 5 years without an aid would have been terrible.
Yeah.
Um, so the next morning, my CD pap worker, and within the same 60 seconds, a friend of mine that lives, I don't know, 5 or 6 houses away messaged me. And they both said the same thing. Let's crowdfund it. I had been crowdfunding for other people. I don't know how much you know about my advocacy, Don, but I since I was 15 years old, if I come across someone in a forum on the internet that I know has a problem that I know how to solve, all I do is I reach out and I help them solve it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that means helping them make the systems work the way they're supposed to, and sometimes that means finding those options outside of the system, like crowdfunding.
That's right.
Done an awful lot of crowdfunding for other people. They had to convince me to crowdfund my own wheelchair. It took about 3 days, and then I had never experienced waiting less than 2 years for a new power chair in New York State, and that was crowdfunded, professionally created, shipped, delivered, modified for my specific needs, and usable in 2 months. And a lot of the pushback I get when I say that is, well, it was already pre-made. It's already there. Well, so is every other wheelchair you
That's
get.
right.
It's sitting in a warehouse long before you order it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Minor customizations are made between the warehouse and you. Most of that is pre-made, sitting in a warehouse, just ready to go. And yet we're still waiting across the country between 6 months and 3 years to receive a chair.
And your
Uh,
experience of that is the red tape, the ridiculous rejustifications. I've had folks with literally they were bilateral amputees and they still had to re-justify and recertify
yeah.
that they were still disabled as if they grew their legs back. This shows you that
Well,
nobody's
yeah.
really looking. They just go through the check boxes and see how many things they can stop you with, is what it
Through New
seems
York,
like.
yeah, through New York's disability welfare system, in one way or another, for one reason or another, I have to prove that I am still disabled with my genetic condition that's incurable 16 times a year, Don.
That's absolutely insane, and I don't think the average listener will actually understand what that process does in holding up, discouraging a person, and just again taking your will. I mean, you're an outdoor guy. You're constantly living to be outside, and part of the poignant part of the documentary, you're looking out a window and you're talking about everything that you love to do was outside. So, for those that are listening and thinking, well, he just couldn't get a wheelchair, imagine not being able to go outside, not to a doctor's appointment, not to escape a fire, not to see a friend, not to feed your dog outside. That is what we're dealing with here. And all up until then, they've continually, regardless of what your interests are or any of that, it basically said, we don't have the right paperwork and we're not going to be able to help you. Even though
Right.
the redundancy is there, they know that you have a genetic condition that is not going to be healed.
Interestingly, those same systems that in my early 30s spent months investigating whether the genetic condition that they recognized that I was born with and still had affected me between the ages of 18 and 21.
I mean, again,
They tried to force me to go over an hour away to a doctor I didn't know when I didn't have personal transportation, and yet they had access to my medical records.
mm,
I thought that, and I told them just use the medical records. Call my doctor. It's
yeah.
all there. Uh, and that would have been a further waste, right? And we hear this all the time. On the left, we hear we need to fund everything more. On the right, we hear we need to save more money. And it's both.
Mm,
It's both. We could fund better outcomes by saving money. We could fund better outcomes by not spending all the money it takes for me to prove 16 times a year that I'm disabled,
yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah.
That's a part of a person's salary, well, many people's salaries. That's brick
Hmm.
and mortar costs. Um, that's travel costs for them. It's ridiculous how much money we spend to verify that I don't have usable walking legs.
Hmm.
Interestingly, are you familiar with the universal assessment system?
Yeah.
I believe it was one of the first times I went through that. They broke down that I had feet but no legs and the ability to drive without assistive technology. Really long toes,
Uh,
I guess, Don.
okay. Yeah.
Uh, it, it took me 4 months for them to remove that I had the ability to drive without assistive technology.
Mm,
It took me 4 years to make the state of New York recognize that I actually have legs, and they've always been firmly attached.
hmm
Now, the universal assessment system goes through a lot of things, right? So imagine a similar kind of mistake with something different, maybe a medication protocol or a
mm,
care protocol. Now you're talking about harming people, really harming people, over a mischecked box, right? Where's your doctor in that mix?
mm,
He's not there. Um, so that chair was crowdfunded, right? To get back to it, and the people who crowdfunded that wheelchair, by the way, were either libertarians or libertarian leaning, and they ended up asking me to join their movement. Now, that's how I ended up running for state senate.
mm.
Um, I crossed 4 counties every day, 5 months in that chair. I pounded pavement in every small and large town in a 4 county district in that chair.
Hmm.
I would go on to do the same thing statewide in that chair. Um, and we want to talk about how do these systems corporations keep you from repairing and keeping something alive when it should be able to keep going. Uh, a 1/8 by 2 inch part in the lower part of the joystick of that chair went bad. And we contacted Penny and Giles, which is a global company, um, for enough information to figure out what off the rack joystick we could drop in to use. Mind you, this is a original price tag $65,000 chair. And this company no longer makes that joystick or that part, but never going to again. And they told us that because of their internal policies on intellectual property that they own, that they can't give us that information. Um, and then they told me that the chair was obsolete and I should throw it away.
Go on. I'm sorry. I get so disgusted with that. Folks, for those that don't know, I work with the Catskill Center for Independence. We're an independent living center located in Otsego County. We have 4 different counties that we help with. One of the programs that we do for free is to loan durable medical equipment out to folks because it's donated to us and we get it right back out there. More than once, I would say more than once a year, I have been talking to either an insurance provider or a consumer who tells me they've called the insurance company to say, "Hey, we just got this brand new hospital bed. Unfortunately, mom or whoever, fill in the blank, passed away. We'd like to give it back so that it can be lent out to someone else." And their advice is to either give it away or throw it away. Now we're talking about a bed that cost $4,000 to $5,000 for the rudimentary setup that they do allow through the Medicaid system to go to people's homes, and their suggestion is to throw it away. However, you go into a hospital setting, and you will be sitting in a hospital bed that 10,000 people have been in, and probably 500 have died in, but we can reuse that. But we can't take this $5,000 piece of equipment and get it back out to somebody in need. That is ridiculous. So go on. I'm sorry, man. I just that outrages me. And it should for anybody listening, because this is part and parcel of why our insurance costs are so astronomically high and making things that are so important to your life unattainable.
So, how do we get from crowdfunded chair running for office to starting a foundation? Um, my personal network grew dramatically by running for office. I live in Mount Upton, New York. I suggest your viewers, if you don't know it, look it up on the map. It's tiny. It's a hamlet of a town that's so small it probably shouldn't be considered a town.
Hmm.
Um, and access to the greater world has always been very limited, mostly by funds, right? other people with disabilities, if they're fortunate enough to have a family that has enough, they get more out of the house experience. My family, I mean, my parents were farmhands for room and board when I was born. Uh, that just wasn't there. Life is too hard, right? You'll see that in the documentary too.
Hmm.
Uh, but running for office, all of a sudden I've got people flocking to me, not just from all over the state, but all over the country. I had one doctor drive from California to come work for my campaign.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
and all of a sudden I've got all of these people surrounding me that are capable in so many different ways. And so when that happened with that joystick, it was a supporter of mine, actually from Pennsylvania, Matt Lacey, now Vice President and Director of Research and Design at the Mobility Independence Foundation, who fixed it. Not
Hmm.
only did he fix that, but he fixed the other one that I hadn't been able to. And I've since given that other one away. Uh, but that landed me on the knowledge that I had never had previously. These things are simple to work on. The hard part is getting the information you need to know what to do, or
Hmm.
getting the parts that are made very specifically so that you can only get them from one place, right?
You
Um,
also you also mentioned about the built-in obsolescence of.
that's also in everything today,
Hmm.
right?
We all know
Uh,
that from the iPhone debacle.
yeah.
Hmm.
So interestingly, right, there's this right to repair your wheelchair bill that's just been proposed to Congress. And people wonder why I'm not fighting for better regulations or better policies or to change a government rule about this. Well, for one, quality business, quality competition does not involve forcing out your competitor. It does not involve taking down their business in some legal manner. It seems to today when you look around at all these big corporations doing things like that. But in my mind, it does not. Um, I want to make a point with this organization that brings home the repairability, modularity, and ownership of things. So if you're not allowed to repair what you just purchased, do you actually own it? If you have to pay a lot of money to that same company or another company that it makes money off of, in order to get it repaired, do you own it? If a repair that you could do in 5 minutes has you waiting days, weeks, months, or years through a system that is captured by these same companies, do you own it? And that applies to the iPhone and the wheelchair and John Deere tractors and your automobile and your PCs. I, once you own something, you own it. If you have to keep paying for it in order to be able to use it,
Hmm.
other than purchasing parts and doing the repairs, um, it's not yours. And there is a saying, with the coming prescription subscription model of everything in life today, you will own nothing and you will pretend to be happy.
How true that is, even down to house ownership. Yeah.
So, I mean, when we think about disability, my story is, I guess, provocative or inspiring because all I did was try to stay alive. Um, the reality here is if we can do better, we should do better. And our lead mechanical engineer actually has designed two power wheelchairs that he wants to bring to market,
Hmm.
and he can't. He can't bring them to market. The rules and regulations are set up to keep out competition. So to be a new
That's not
company,
conjecture.
yeah,
This is
that's
provable.
fact.
Hmm.
Um, so then you look at intellectual property, right? Um, there is some positive argument for IP on technology, but the way it's going right now, they've blown past what it's meant to do.
Mm-hmm.
And now they use it to keep you from repairing your stuff,
Mm-hmm.
to force you to pay them extraordinary amounts of money for simple
And wait
things.
on their schedule for you to be able to have that opportunity to have it fixed.
Right. Now back to this wheelchair right to repair bill. As you know, I've said it, I've run for office a few times. I'm well adept at reading legislation.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they asked for me to support it. And on its face value, the right to repair was great, right? Of course, I support that. But when you read the legislation, there's carve-outs. Um, if it's a trade secret, then they don't have to give you the information to make that repair. And when you're a multinational corporation with billions of dollars and all these lawyers, do you know what a trade secret is?
Anything they deem a trade secret, I
Literally
would
anything.
assume. Yeah, just
Yeah. Lewis Rossman on the phone the other day told me that trade secret can be the location of a fuse.
that's insane. I mean, so far, I mean, everything that's been going on in this, the only help that you've actually received is from strangers,
Yeah.
not the government that you are supposed to be, getting the assistance from. I mean, that's just crazy to me. And a lot of folks don't see the reality of this until they're in the situation themselves.
Yeah.
And that concerns me. And that's why I want this story out there, because it's the voters who can make a decision. You've said over and over, you have absolutely zero interest in battling in legislation because you've come up with an easier solution, and that's what we're going to get into now, right? We're going to talk about how did you come to, I know that you networked and you spent a lot of time trying to talk with people to see, could this be done? How long did it take from conception to movement?
Couple of months.
Yeah. Well, that's I
Well, I
that's
mean,
amazing.
right. So, I mean, I ended up in this situation where, because I have the support of people who were capable of doing it, I had a wheelchair for life, no matter what.
Hmm.
I have the kind of network that's going to keep me going in terms of wheelchairs for as long as I need,
Hmm.
right? Without having to go through the system, without having to deal with all the arduous paperwork, without having to go to 17 doctors and therapists to justify that I can't
Because you're
walk.
no longer relying on the insurance model.
Right. And one that freed so much stress.
Hmm.
These systems are not easy to navigate, and they're psychologically detrimental.
Absolutely. Yeah. It literally kills the will to live and survive, making people feel like a burden because they seem to be asking for the
Yep.
unreasonable when everybody has something to give in this life.
And I would say it's much more reasonable to ask for help from your neighbors, family, and community than it is from one of these systems. Because if you want to pay $10 for a dollar's worth of goods and services, use a government program.
Hmm.
That's really what it is. You are asking for less by asking your neighbors and your loved ones. And that's our model coming forward.
Hmm.
We want to build teams and communities that can do the builds and the repairs and the modifications. And then when it's a machine, it's gonna break down. Remember this. There is no machine man can make that will not break down. And
Hmm.
this is something that needs to be factored into the situation. So if you have your chair through the standard systems, you're either calling your provider or your insurance company or both, right? Say, hey, I need this repair. Typically, that means waiting days or weeks or months for, depending on where you live, for the provider to send a technician out to verify that you need a repair.
And that's not even the repair service. That's just
No,
to justify whether you need it or not.
yeah.
Hmm.
Because I don't know anything. My word doesn't matter. Um, and after that, then you go to battle with your insurance company. Are they going to cover the parts? You don't know.
Hmm.
You really don't know. They're supposed to, but you don't know if they're just going to say yes, or if you're going to have to fight it for weeks or months, or if they're going to try to replace the chair instead, which can be a whole nother bag of worms. Um, but let's say that they do just approve, right? Then you're waiting for your provider to get those parts.
Hmm.
And then you're waiting for them to show up. That's another appointment you got to make. You got to wait for the time slot, right? Um, in my experience and a lot of other people's experience, they often show up with the wrong parts or not enough knowledge to do it. Now, here's
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah. You said that too.
Here's the thing
Hmm.
about the knowledge, right? a provider pays a licensing fee to the manufacturer to be able to distribute, sell, and repair these machines. And yet somehow these providers often don't even get the information they need to advocate, let alone the parts they need, proper repairs.
Mm.
Um, and then, I mean, if you're familiar with cars, you might be repairing something on your car and see that something adjacent to it is wearing, and then it's best to repair that right before it breaks. In terms of wheelchairs, you can't do it. Gotta wait for it to break.
Hmm.
Now, in our model, as I am living, actually, if you have a breakdown and you need a repair, you call somebody that helps you build it that's in your own community, and they're not going to make you wait that average of 5 months to fill a flat tire or swap out a battery, right?
Hmm.
Um, then we talk about capability. I have not seen a powered chair that is both capable and repairable to a ethical manner um, on the market. I haven't. I go to these tech expos and I want to go demolition derby. I just want to destroy everything that's sitting there because it looks like a bunch of wish.com crap to me.
Yeah.
Um, and I hate to be like negative about the industry because those companies are stuck in a box. They're producing what they're allowed to produce.
Hmm.
That's really the reality. We've had a representative of one of these big companies state that, they're stuck in a box by the Medicare rules. Oh, can't reach outside that box to solve a problem. You got to keep that problem and, keep people in a room. They can't stand that.
Mm.
Um, so if we're going to advance this, we need to go around the rules and we need to outperform the standards. You have to do both.
Hmm.
You can't just say, oh, well, I can throw a wheelchair together and it's going to be safe. You can't do that. You have to make sure it's safe.
Hmm.
So we have testing protocols in place before anything actually gets delivered to somebody. Uh, and in terms of the FDA regs, we're going to blow those out of the water. That some of their test standards are really stupid. I
Hmm.
think a manual chair has to be like dropped from 6 inches or a foot 1,000 times or something, and that's it, right? And then they literally just make a machine that just bounces it up and down 1,000 times, and that there's your safety test.
Hmm.
To hell if the wheel's going to stay on when you're
Yeah, it
going
has nothing to do
forward.
with forward inertia on the wheels, the casters, or any of that kind of stuff.
Right. And now we understand why they make the top 30 most dangerous consumer goods because these
Hmm.
safety standards are garbage.
Hmm.
Um,
So I just want to quick recap here. We've been dealing with the chairs, the insurance companies, and all the pitfalls that come along with it. But ultimately, that has a human cost, and
yes.
that cost has been depression to the point of suicidal ideation in a lot of the people that I work with.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
and right down to decubitus and bed sores for those that don't know, that ultimately take their lives because they
Yep.
are not able to shift weight. And in your situation, you have a very particular disability that makes it so that you have to kind of sit the way you're sitting, like pretty much all the time, right? So
Yeah, let me talk about the psychological issue for a bit here.
yeah.
Um, I still do my individual outreach and advocacy. I still occasionally find someone with a problem I know how I can solve. And now it's a little more, pardon me, it's actually a little easier now because I have an outreach director, well, a lead outreach director now. They got promoted. Um, and they maintain a list of organizations like the Catskill Center around the nation that assists with these kinds of things.
Hmm.
Um, and so when I run into somebody, I can, just say, hey, give me a list in this area. And then I send them the list and I teach them how to make the calls and, ask for the help and be cordial and try not to be so frustrating with the people on the phone because it's hard to do in that situation.
Yeah.
Um, and this gentleman that I ran into, well, it was directed to me by someone else I know on Facebook. Um, he had had a motorcycle accident, spinal injury, and he had fought through recovery and rehabilitation for 7 years to gain the ability physically to be approved for a better manual chair so he could have a more independent life.
Mm,
Um, he got to that point and he got approved and he received a better manual chair that wasn't fit appropriately for him. They gave him a wheelchair he can't use. And his only aid or assistance uh, in that state in particular was his adult autistic son. If you know anything about autism, they have sensory issues often enough. And that's what happened, right? This gentleman has a urinary and colostomy bag, and his son, who was helping him, just couldn't handle the sensory aspect of everything that day and walked out. And the gentleman does not blame his son. The gentleman is very good with his son, by the way. Um, and this is also a gentleman who had worked his entire life to build a business and have a home and family, and lost it all through disability, which is
hmm
common. Um, and he posted a veiled threat of suicide the evening of the morning that I sent that list via email of organizations that can help him. And having enough experience of my and other people's depression and suicidal issues, I knew that it's really not the right approach to just call them up and say, "Hey, let's talk about your wanting to die."
hmm
That's really not what you can do because you'll push them the wrong way, right? So I'm thinking, I just sent that list. I can call him and talk to him about that. And maybe, getting through that'll be, maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's what's up. Maybe just giving him a chance to vent will make him feel better. And vent he did. He wasn't angry at me, but he screamed at me for 30 minutes. And at the end of that call, I let him go because I know what it is to have to vent. Um, he put a 30-minute deadline on his life. He told me he was going to kill himself in 30 minutes. Um, this is a man who had already fought through 7 years of recovery. And he's just ready to give up over that wheelchair, right? Um, I I did something that libertarians aren't known for doing. I called the sheriff in his area, and I called it a wellness check. I made them do the job they're supposed to do,
hmm
right? Be helpful, which is good. Um, and of course, they don't call the sheriffs. It's another state, whatever. They're not obligated to call you back when you do something like that. And they didn't. And the next day, I saw that the veiled threat was taken off. He deleted that post. He had some other posts, and a couple days later, we were interacting in a common thread. And this is a man I spoke to 2 or 3 times, right? And he told me that I was his best friend. I want you to think about this. This is a man who had a community, a business, employees, family, hardworking. And because of disability and lack of provision of basic needs, a stranger on the internet that called the cops on him is now his best friend.
Well, it showed somebody was caring, somebody was listening, somebody could understand and validate what he was going through.
This is a situation that happens so often.
Yeah.
When I talk to other people with disabilities, the majority of them have what they call an exit plan, um, which is for the same reason that I'm on the nursing home transition and diversion waiver. Uh, they would rather take their own life than go into a living institution.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, there's too many people who need that kind of care. Again, this is a situation where the infrastructure hasn't grown, um, and a situation where the staff is lighter than the patient need. Right? I mean, how many places have you seen, Don, where there's not enough people working there?
My daughter just graduated nursing school. Her first indoctrination was to work for, and I won't use the name of the place, but a nursing home. And her immediate response was, I can't do this, Dad. They've got like 8 people that they want me to work with. Nobody's giving me guidance. I can't answer the bell because I have these things and these things to do, and there's not enough staff here, and blah, blah, blah. And she ultimately left. and went to work in home care with an individual instead of this idea. And she was the first to say, "This is heartbreaking. I can't go there. It breaks my heart to see the suffering that these people." And oh, by the way, folks, the people we're talking about built the community you are living in right now.
Yes.
But this is how we remember them. This is how we thank them. And that has got to stop. What I find so encouraging about your approach and what you're doing is it is so common sense. It is so humanitarian in the sense that you're not trying to attach a dollar sign to ownership or proprietary rights. You guys have decided to create a chair modeled after something that you needed, yourself. But in essence, you guys have created a pilot program to prove unquestionably that you can do this open hardware and have other people building these things that you could then now buy and replace and fix your chair without worry of warranty issues and them not coming or that, and you could literally order them off Amazon.
Yep.
So how did you guys do that? So I get you got the concept of wanting to do something about this. You start with Senate and all this kind of stuff, but through your networking and the people you brought together, when does this idea metastasize that we're going to create our own damn chair and we're going to make it out of parts you can buy off of Amazon?
Well, not everything can be bought up on Amazon, but some things can. So
Hmm.
sometimes you'll have to go to a supplier for materials, which every community has. You might need a fabricator, someone who could weld. Every community has one of those. Um, so how did we land on that? Originally, I set out to improve the industry by having an effect on the industry. We hadn't really considered before we formed the board in our documents. We hadn't really considered open hardware. We just wanted to improve things. Um, a friend of mine who is in the documentary, Paul Grindle, he's also a
Hmm.
contractor for us because he's a software engineer. And he said, well, have you considered open hardware? Now, I didn't know what open hardware was. I knew what
Hmm.
open source was. Most people do.
Right.
Open hardware is the physical um, avenue of open source, right? Open source usually refers to code, a computer program.
Hmm.
Open hardware, it's similar. It's everything you need to know to build a thing. It's the design. It's the way you can modify it easily. It's a prescribed steps of building a thing. There's an organization out there right now, by the way, teaching people how to make open hardware earth-moving machines for homesteading.
That's awesome. I mean,
Uh,
people are
Ge-
starting to think differently.
Germany has a company that's doing open hardware for laptops, smartwatches, digital cameras. It's coming from every direction because people are fed up with the expense of a prescription model for
Hmm.
physical things, or a subscription model for physical things. Um, I also see this from an economic light. If our country, the industries here, don't start pursuing either open hardware or significantly less restrictive models of IP, then we're going to be outcompeted. The competition is going to come from the rest of the world.
Hmm.
Our industry will die.
Hmm.
I don't think that's going to happen because industry tends to adapt.
Right.
And I guess I'm here to make sure that as that happens, we keep our mobility devices in mind. We make sure that they don't get forgotten in this process of transitioning into things that people can repair and use and last.
Hmm.
This is also an environmental movement. We all hear about e-waste with computers all the time. The average power chair is between 100 and 500 pounds. They average a lifespan of 3 to 5 years. And Don, you run an equipment closet. How many of them get donated, and how many of them that are donated age out and go in the dump,
Hmm.
right?
More than I would like to say. And if we had the storing capability The storage facilities, we would have been still keeping those so that we could part them out and get these out to people. But again, administrative cost and the ability to do that is not here when you are state funded, federally funded even. There's no interest in this. It's like just little handouts. Independent living centers alone have been level funded for the last 17, 18 years now, where everything else cost has gone up. Independent living centers who serve, by the way, an unbelievable amount of people a year, taking that weight and caseload off from insurance providers and other system, people. We relieve a lot of that burden, and people tend to come to us because it is community based, and we actually know the community we're working with on a first name basis in most cases. So, but that's really difficult to replicate when there's no one interested in supporting that idea, or the reason why. Why would we? I mean, because most people, I don't want to say most, but a lot of people in the age of voting, the younger dynamic of or demographic aren't really aware of these kinds of things when they're voting. We vote based on personal interest, and this party says, and I can get what I need on this party, so I'm going this way. Um, when we should really be looking at things more in an independent kind of way to lean left or right or in the middle based on the information before you, not just your
Self-reliance, done.
feeling. Yeah.
Self-reliance and self-sufficiency. Do it yourself.
Hmm.
Maybe not all alone, right? Communities exist. You have neighbors, you have families. Um, there's an old quote. Um, Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you
What you
can
can
do for
do for
your
your
country.
country.
Can
Yeah.
you turn a wrench? Can you turn a wrench? Then fix a wheelchair.
Yeah. Right.
Jeez. Stop making your neighbors die slowly, rotting to
And
death.
the thing is you guys have created. What is the name of the chair that you're currently working on, the model?
Which one, Don? We've got many projects.
Okay,
Um, so
the one in the documentary that I
yes.
see going over insane obstacles.
So the flagship product, which is meant for the most active-minded user,
Hmm.
someone who wants to go into the Catskill Mountains like I do, someone who also needs to have a good suspension in order to do that.
To go over
Someone,
basic sidewalks.
yeah.
Hmm.
Um, that is the endurance, and hopefully those designs are released by the end of the year. You know how engineering goes. We had planned by the end of September, but we're getting there. Yeah, very close actually. That is the first project for two reasons. One, I don't sit still. I can't. It's not in my work ethic. It's not in my mind. And
Hmm.
if I'm going to lead this organization by traveling across the country, obviously I need something like the endurance.
Yeah, right.
Uh, and it's also to show what we can do with readily available off-the-rack technology.
Right.
So when I say open hardware, we're not teaching you how to make a battery. We're teaching you how to buy a battery for less.
Hmm.
We're teaching you not how to make a tire, but how to buy whatever tire it is you need, right? So it's a list of components. Some of them you do have to put together. Some of them will have to be manufactured, but the majority of them are available for sale already.
Hmm.
Um, so when we look at the battery upgrade we did, which is amazing, uh,
Yeah, let's talk about that. What now, when an average chair, you and I talked about the efficacy of a what is it, a gel lead acid battery.
yep.
We're looking at having a 90% efficacy rate over 6 months. It depletes, right? And pretty soon they're just
So the lead acid steel gel cell batteries, even the best brands, are warranted for peak performance for 6 months.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
They cost $700 out of pocket for a
Mm-hmm.
pair. If you get them through an insurance system, that number will be $2,100, by the
Mm-hmm.
way. And lithium iron phosphate, which is the safest lithium on the market, does not catch fire. It
Mm-hmm.
has an onboard computer for every battery that controls it. You can shoot it with a shotgun. You can drop it up a skyscraper, and it won't do anything more than a fizzle. So I want to get that out there clearly because a lot of people were sending me videos of Teslas on fire and telling me I'm going to die. These are the same batteries that people put in their camper vans under their children's beds for their solar generation when they're traveling across the country.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, and You can run this chair at least 24 hours straight before those batteries die.
With this new battery and the
With,
expected life.
well, hang on. In my case, that means 3 days up on the hill, 3 days in the Catskill area, in the wilderness, right? Obviously, I'm sleeping in my own bed every night, but
Hmm.
the 3 days on the family property, um, treating it like a four-wheeler
Yeah.
before it has to charge. Now, I'm going to get through these advantages of this kind of battery. Um, Lead acids, group 24, take between 8 and 12 hours to charge.
Hmm.
These take 6 hours. Lead acids, if you plug them in for 15 minutes and then unplug so you can go to the bathroom or whatever, you have now damaged those batteries. They won't take as much of a charge anymore. Lithium iron phosphate or LiFePO4. Um, you can plug it in for 5 minutes and probably have 20 to 30 minutes around the house and come back and plug it in again over and over and over and over. It doesn't damage the battery.
Hmm.
So you're not in a spot. You're not stuck sitting still. And that is a level of freedom that most people do not understand. Um, the going rate, you can pay as little as $200 for a set of these batteries. That's two per chair. Um, Two per mobility device. Sorry. If we call it a wheelchair, the FDA will tell us we're wrong
Mm.
because it is the FDA that decides what is and is not a wheelchair. Um, um, and They are warranted, depending on the brand, for between 7 and 11 years at peak performance. Now, remind you, peak performance means that I can run this like a four-wheeler for 3 days on the family property up on the hill.
On one
So,
charge.
yes. So, if that's peak performance, what do I care if it dwindles down to half?
Hmm. I've in the last, I'm going to say this last year alone, I have had to junk about 30 power chairs solely because when the battery dies on one of those lead acids, it'll never start back up again. You got to replace the batteries.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. It's just
Mhm.
nuts that's built in again, that built in obsolescence so that you're going to have to spend more. You're going to guarantee insurance is going to pay and get another one out for an exorbitant amount of money. Then it doesn't suit the need for most consumers.
Yeah, so there's another problem with the industry too, right? Um, Part of it's marketing. We won't get into that. Um, but they look shiny and new and flashy, and they're made to look appealing on the outside, and you're not really allowed to dig into the internals and understand what's going on or what kind of quality is actually inside the chair.
Hmm.
But we do that. We
Yeah,
reverse engineer to make sure we don't repeat their mistakes.
right,
And often enough, when you open up these things, it is some of the jankiest, oldest, simplest, stupidest, unreliable tech inside every component you could imagine. It
right.
is Wish.com crap, and that is no
It's
exaggeration.
Temu.com, right? Yeah,
Right? Right?
yeah.
Get your Timu wheelchair. Jeez.
For
Actually, to be
49.99, by the way.
You
Yeah.
know what? I gotta be fair though. Timu and Wish.com have some products that are better than what you get through your
Hmm.
insurance system.
That's probably true. I don't know any case in particular, but I here's what I'm excited about, Tom. You're a man that the insurance, the legislations that create all of this fiasco. You're a man that they have hoped to forget, hoped wouldn't do anything to ruffle any feathers.
Yep.
You've been told here, just wait 5 years. with no chair and no ability to get in or out or move or enjoy your life or do any of the things that are God-given rights, and you decide, I'm just trying to recap this for folks if they're just dropping in on the show here. You and your team, which I want to talk about the team too. I want to get together about how did we network this many people? And we're not just talking about the average Joes. We're talking on the documentary alone. We've got professors from Rochester's Institute of Technology. You've well, for God's sakes, you've got the Surgeon General, the former Surgeon General is weighing in on this and you've got a lot of support to show that your modality of creating your own product that can be adaptable and worked on affordably, as affordable as it can be in an open market. And you guys have the determination to use an open hardware idea where you're going to release the how-tos, how to fix it, how to build it, and all of that, so that anyone would be able to recreate this chair, which, by the way, is the Arnold Schwarzenegger of chairs, man. This thing looks like it could tow a truck. Now,
Since you said that, it will tow a tractor trailer.
that's
Oh,
amazing,
really?
man. We're going to probably see tests in that. I know you have another film coming out that'll probably go further into this, but who are some of the movers and shakers that you've been able to attract, and why do you think they were so fast to jump on the wagon with you?
Well, I'm going to start with our vice president, Matt Lazy. Without him, I wouldn't have even considered doing this. In fact, without him, my crowdfunded show that I talked about would be broken and I would be in the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
He travels 5 hours as soon as he's able, anytime I need a repair.
Wow.
And that's because he's a good person.
Mm-hmm.
He shovels his neighbors' driveways. He fixes their cars. He's been fixing things his entire life. He's a technically, I believe he's a maintenance engineer at a 90-acre facility that builds locomotives. And
Mm-hmm.
his job is to fix everything they use to build locomotives.
Okay.
That means that he can dissect just about any tech you put in front of him. If it's hydraulic, electric, whatever it is, he has some kind of understanding for it, and he can just figure it out. Without that skill set readily at hand, I wouldn't have gone forward. I would be peacefully living in my garden with my own wheelchair for life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of
Wait, you
wrong.
garden? You're disabled. You're not allowed to garden. So he's just one of them, but you've got an impressive amount of people. How long did it take you to get this group together?
Took me about 3 weeks to form the initial board.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
And let's talk about, I mean, we're talking about RIT professors. We're talking about engineers. Uh,
Slow process through all of that, kind of.
mhm,
It's actually been pretty fast for a small nonprofit.
mhm,
We just turned 3 years old this month,
mhm,
7 days ago, and so we started with the initial board, and we started, the basic things you have to do: social media, website, making some connections, and then really what made it take off for us was that first grant we got from FUTO, Futo. They're a private foundation that funds open source projects, typically software.
mhm.
Actually, I think we're their only open hardware that they fund. And that is a foundation started by Aaron Wolf, who was he was one of the founders of Yahoo Games. He got a lot of money in the WhatsApp deal when that was sold, and so he took the tax burden and he created a private foundation. Sorry, I'm the guy on welfare that hates taxes. Crucify me if you want, but um, the uh, the interesting thing was that how I got in touch with Aaron was. uh, talking to Louis Rossman, whom you'll see in the documentary, big supporter now. I called Louis Rossman because he's hot on the right to repair. And open hardware automatically gives everyone the right to repair. You don't need legislation. You don't need these idiots at the top that think they know what they're doing.
Who
Sorry,
who
folks,
is
they're
Louis
all
Rossman?
idiots.
Yeah. Can you tell us who is Louis Rossman?
Louis Rossman started out as a repair technician specifically for Apple. And he went round and round with them over, Apple's business model. Um, so now he's a YouTuber with, I think he's up to 2.8 million subscribers now, which is why I called him. I
Mm.
called him to be on his channel and talk about open hardware. And we played phone tag for weeks. And he's a very busy guy. He's got like 7 businesses and foundations that he runs, right?
Hmm.
He's very busy. Um, but I learned of him because he was pushing for a right to repair your wheelchair bill, right, in Colorado, which was passed. Um, and what really made me call him was he did this short clip where he's talking about how he believes that people who are in wheelchairs should have access to see a live alligator in the wild. And you know me, Don. I mean, I threw my hand up. That's me. I
Yeah,
want to
I want to
be
go
eaten
play with
by
the
an
alligator.
alligator,
Yeah.
right? Let's wrestle. Um, but after phone tag for a few weeks, he called me up and he said, I just don't have the time with everything I'm doing to have you on the podcast. How about $200,000?
Well, I mean, yeah, if you're going to turn me down for the podcast, that's a hell of a way to do it
Quite the
and show
consolation.
support. That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, quite the consolation prize.
Hmm.
Um, and that came from Aaron Wolf, who he worked for at Futo. Um, I do need to point out the people who fund us are typically, in terms of the larger amounts that we get, they're typically people who don't give to charity.
Hmm.
They want to sponsor the next for-profit business, right? Um,
Well, this is a movement. This isn't just giving to
right.
charity. This is recreating the way things are going to work. And it sounds like he was pissed because of the Apple, the way they were dealing with things.
Yep.
And I love seeing the humanitarian side of this because everybody that you've got as a part of your crew were just moved. And not just moved because of the, oh, poor guy. This guy's doing something about it.
Yep. That's the difference between inspiration and inspiration, PORN, right? I'm sure you've heard that word, Don, inspiration porn.
Yeah.
Um, that's where you make a big deal out of somebody with their disability, not for anything they do, but because you, I don't know, took a picture or something.
Yep.
Um, I prefer to be seen for what I can do,
Hmm.
which I believe Devin Hamilton feels the same way. He's out of Delaware County. Uh,
Excellent. Yeah.
he's our lead mechanical engineer. Uh, we contract his machine shop,
Hmm.
Rapadapt.
Yep.
Now, how do I collect all these people? I mean, one of them was Matt, right? That was easy enough. Of course, I twisted my mother's arm, right?
Yeah, I bet that was
Um,
hard.
and I'm trying to remember who else was original. My cousin was on for a while, but then his life took, he got hairy and he didn't have the time. Um, but right now we're up to 8 board members.
Hmm.
We have a lifelong activist that lives in the Phoenix, Arizona area. That's Emily Goldberg. She's the one that got us connected to ASU, which is where we met Daniel Chavez, who designed the training wheelchair that won the project that we sponsored as a contest at ASU. And so now we have a medical doctor with uh, multi-continental experience.
Mm.
South America, the UK, and here. Um, Jonathan Howe, he's just a very good person with the skills to be a secretary. So he is our secretary. Out of he lives in trying to remember my boroughs. He lives in Queens technically, and he works in the Bronx as a public defender.
Mm.
And so he is quite often going to battle for people who've had their children taken away.
Yeah.
Sometimes the parents have a disability, sometimes the child has a disability, but he sees that often enough in what he does that he really cares about what we do. Um, then we have Tom Pink, uh, grew up in Brooklyn or the Bronx, one of the B's, um, and then his family moved to Staten Island, and he just recently moved to Kentucky because he is now engaged. Congratulations to Tom Pink. Um, he is very excited about what we're doing because he works in politics and he understands that, we're not going to change this that way. And he also has some conditions that means that he'll eventually need some kind of mobility assistance.
Hmm.
Um,
Let's
then
give folks a little perspective on that, just in particular. Uh, there are approximately 5 million people in the United States alone that are wheelchair users or mobility device users.
a 5.5. Most of them can use manual, but a lot of those that are stuck in manuals need power. They just don't
Yeah.
qualify.
Now, here's a fun statistic for the folks listening. 43% of us, by the time we are 65 years old, will have a disabling condition. That's just
Physically.
age and just the way it is. So, why is this not more of an urgent topic, considering most of the United States is inaccessible, unless, of course, you're Las Vegas, Nevada, trying to get all the money you can from everybody? Let them go home a loser just like everybody else. So, we'll make it accessible so everybody can get in there and lose. But it drives me nuts that with such high percentages for this inevitability, why this isn't on the forefront or at least in education somewhere. I didn't go I went through 12 years of school. I don't remember anybody telling me anything about preparedness or what to know, anything about accessibility or why that affects a community. It drives me crazy. And I've been on this run for 23 years now with the Catskill Center, and we've made some progress overall as the community, but it's discouraging, man. The thing that gives such a great sense of fresh air about what you guys are doing is you're not legislating. It's not focused on going and trying to change bills and all that, because that is just let other people do that are into that. But what you guys have done is created a common sense solution to an overwhelmingly, I just cannot believe how simple the idea of this is. And then I can't believe how quickly you were able to accumulate a team of people that were genuinely interested on a humanitarian level, not a poor me thing. They knew
Mhm.
that what they're doing is to serve the greater good of humanity overall if we can create this pilot. And just being a part of something like that's really empowering. So to see it and to see all the people that are in this documentary, the mood of it, the ambition of the approach, and then it's been proven how badass this chair that you guys are working on. In that you're taking people through some pretty crazy obstacle courses, driving over huge pieces of wood and
Oh, that's nothing.
doing all
We-
kinds
we-
of things like that. But again, most people, when it's determined that they're going to need a mobility aid, they're given the cheapest that they can get away with giving this person. And the person receiving it doesn't usually know. And this happens often too. They'll bring a power chair to a place that is a trailer where the person can't maneuver that in the building as it is. Now, there are smaller models, there's specialized units, but for whatever reason, they don't fit the justification for that when their door widths are 28
Mhm.
inches. They can't even get through there. And now, if they do go, hey, let me get a manual wheelchair, maybe that'll be easier to move. Later down the line, they realize that, you know what, I can't interact in life with something that's designed to roll on a Walmart floor only if I want to go out and see my kid's graduation, or I want to go to do anything other than being on a Walmart flat surface. And
Now,
then once they get that, they're not allowed to have a power chair.
there's a few perspectives I'm going to discuss here. Um, First, as you know, I ran for office in state in 2020 for state senate, and this was a big part of my policy points. When I talked about doing better and spending less money, those on the right told me, "Oh, I don't want those people to have more." They obviously wanted to pay higher taxes because they're conservative. I don't get it. Those on the right or those on the left said, yeah, those on the right said, I don't want them to have more. Those on the left said, we have Medicaid, we have SSSI, we just have to fund that more. We need
Hmm.
to create a bigger jobs program that actually doesn't help people. That's how we do it. And I just couldn't stand it. That's why I got out of politics. I
Yeah.
cannot, we are so mired in this left, right, without even thinking about
Oh,
solutions.
exactly right. There like this is why I don't get into politics. There are some things on the right that I agree with. They make sense. But there's a lot that's on the left that I also agree with. So how do we do that when the United States is set up to have this your team, my team mentality, and we just kind of oggishly go through it, you know what I mean? Without really looking at the particulars or how they affect
Right.
overall community. It's a fix for right now kind of thing. So we're into this. We've got the chair. You've been going all over the country, um, showing the chair and garnering support for this. How's that gone? What has been your, how receptive have folks been?
I can quantify this in one little story. Not this year, but last year in May, we started doing tech expos in the industry, and that has taken us as far as Palm Springs and LA.
Hmm.
Um, by the time I got to Los Angeles for that expo, where people with disabilities show up looking for better equipment or to see what's going on, or sometimes it's because they're in a living institution and it's the only reason that they find to get them out of the house. Um, which is sad. Actually, you see a lot of sadness at these places.
Hmm.
Um, by the time we got to LA, people with disabilities knew who we were, even though we'd never been there. They came looking for us. Um, PTs, OTs, orthopedic doctors, they're all hot for what we're doing. And they have said things that, well, one woman said this explicitly, but they all say something akin to it. I am sick of putting a person back together to send them home in a piece of equipment that slowly kills them.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, imagine, so I mean, there's another aspect here. We talk about the costs of our current system. If your machine isn't up to snuff in terms of capability and longevity and repairability, then your support networks, which for those of us who are lucky enough to have them are our families, then they're detriment. Because now Lewis talks about this in the documentary. He's powerful in what he says. Your family is detrimented, right? I grew up that way. One parent had to stay home and one parent had to work. We were poor.
Hmm.
Um, when you have a doctor's appointment, someone has to take you. When your wheelchair breaks down, you have to be fed and watered and bathed and cleaned and all of that because you can't move to do it yourself.
Hmm.
If I have a working power chair, I do everything myself.
Completely independent. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about my fractures earlier. I'm a stubborn person. Because I know I can. With all four limbs broken in multiple places, I will get myself on and off the toilet and do everything I need without assistance.
Again, demonstrated in the documentary. Another another awesome point is when you're out there demoing the chair and you're doing donuts.
Right? So, I mean,
Fearless.
in the beginning, you see me getting out of bed, right?
Hmm.
Um, my ribs are broken in that scene. Most of them are broken in that scene. And this is what I mean. There is a difference between empathy and pity. There is a difference between understanding and thinking you care.
Hmm.
Because if you look at someone and you have a feeling, that's not caring.
Right. Yeah. There's a
Doing
difference
some,
between sympathy and empathy for
right,
sure.
doing something about it. Now that's
Hmm.
caring.
Yeah. Yep. Or
You'll
just showing
see,
support in any way,
yeah.
some way.
Um, and then there's this social perspective. How many people do you see out and about with a wheelchair regularly? I
I've
mean,
seen more bald eagles.
right.
We talked about this, and they were
When,
just brought off the endangered species list, at least up here in New
mhm.
York. And I see more bald eagles than I do wheelchair users. And that is not just because they don't have the equipment. It's also because the environment in most cities is not set up. It's not kind. I mean, I'm going to go out real quick and just say the Baseball Hall of Fame, Tom, think about this. It's world known. World known. There are 3 buildings in Cooperstown that are accessible. And most of that is being held up because of what they used to call the grandfather clause, the age and the historic nature of this town and all this kind of stuff. But what they lack to understand is that people with disabilities also have a spendable income. Now you're here you go, you plan your trip, you come all the way out, can't wait to see the Baseball Hall of Fame, and then that turns out to be the only building that you can get in besides the post office and the hospital.
So that's a very good point, actually. Myself, I've experienced this, and a lot of people experience this. We give up trying.
Hmm.
Why do I want to go through
That's right.
all the struggle and the expense and put my peers and my family through that same kind of trouble and expense to
Hmm.
get to a place to find out that it's so disappointing and I'm miserable?
I just want to jump in real quick to exemplify on that point right there. I was a trainer for the Help America Vote Act for 5 years when the legislation came out for Help America Vote Act, which is something that would enable require polling sites to be accessible and have accessible voting machines, right? So I spent 5 years and I would work with it when when you get it in your head, oh man, I'm going to go up and train these election commissioners, right? What do you picture? Wingtips, suits, all this kind of stuff, right? Get up there, it's just redneck Bob, right? He's the guy. And when I would bring it, I would spend more time teaching them why than how to make these accessible because they would say stupid shit like, well, why don't we can just pick them up and carry them up the steps if they want to go. Are you kidding me, man? Are you kidding me? Now, when we think about the majority, or not the majority, but the amount of people with disabilities that, like you said, are discouraged from the process, and that's why they don't go and vote.
Yeah,
That's
well,
a big problem. They're a huge
there's
voting block.
there's another reason they don't go to vote that I'm aware of as an advocate. Um, More particular to living institutions, they're often told that they're not allowed to vote because they get a government check.
Right. Or you can do a vote in. Well, I don't know about the government check thing. That's crazy to me, but I
I have heard
totally
that
believe
many times.
that.
I
I'm
have heard that
sure. I'm
many
sure.
times.
I don't
Now
doubt it at all.
think about that though. Think
There's a
about that
lot
though.
to discourage
What is
folks.
what is a person that's not allowed to vote and is getting money? Oh yeah, a slave. Um, Really, think about it, right? You're paid for it and you're told you can't vote. That's incorrect. You can vote. You should vote. Everybody
Hmm.
should. But so many people actually get told because of their disability that they're not allowed to vote. I've heard that in New York State time and time again.
And that is absolutely false. Everybody has the right to vote. If you are listening, it gets to election day, and you find out that your polling place isn't accessible, at least within New York State. Look up your local independent living centers and may file a complaint. You can file a voter complaint that will trigger us to come out and start racking them up and just start pinning them. Our center alone sued 4 counties because of the lack of accessibility after our own governor came on at that time and said, everybody get out there and vote. Everything's accessible, blah, blah, blah. And we were like, what? So we went and did an independent evaluation of every polling site in New York State and found it unbelievably wanting. The idea, oh, yeah, it's accessible. Oh, was it? With a ramp that's like this? It had like a 20-degree slant. It's crazy. Who's going up that? It takes a person one time to pull up. Well, you with this chair, right? But it takes a person one time to show up to see a gravel driveway that they're now
Yep.
going to have to try to manually wheel up, a ramp that's not built to code by any kind of
Yep.
standard whatsoever, which, by the way, failure on the side of, code enforcement, code enforcement officers. I became a code officer because I wanted to find out what's the disconnect. You know what it was? Chapter 11 of the New York State Building Code, as I went through 6 months of training for the code, crazy in depth. We spent about 20 minutes on chapter 11, which is the accessibility code, and had somebody come in, give us, it's hard to push up a wheelchair. No understanding of what this is for or why. And especially when it comes to egress, emergency egress, and being able to get in and out of a building in the event of a fire. So it just blows my mind how many disconnects there are throughout our whole system that do not benefit people with disabilities. And again, when we're talking 43% by the age of 65, it's crazy that there's this much inactivity and helping people be able to participate in their community. So,
Interesting. Did you hear the news story about the living institutions in Massachusetts recently, last few
no.
months? It caught fire. Caught fire.
What is this? What building is it?
It was I believe it was an elderly home.
Oh, okay.
But here's the thing, and they're doing it here too. They're either remodeling or building new buildings for all of these various living institutions. All of the offices are on the ground floor. All the people in the wheelchairs are on the second floor and up. And because of liability reasons, they train their staff not to rescue them in an event of a fire or other emergency. And now these firemen have to deal with people who are fragile and in wheelchairs. And it's disgusting the lack of foresight in that.
Hmm.
But let's get back to wheelchairs, right? You keep talking about ADA compliance and this ramp and that ramp and gravel. And here's the thing, right? Here's the other thing that we've missed in this industry. Accessibility is more than a ramp.
Hmm.
Accessibility is more than a flat spot. Accessibility is a machine that doesn't have to worry about it. Because we talked about heave earlier, right? We're in the Northeast. We're going to have winter heave every single year.
Hmm.
Every parking lot and sidewalk is going to be different every single year. I'm a fisc I'm a
Hmm.
fiscally minded person. Is it applicable? Is it appropriate? Is it fiscally sound to force everyone to repave everything every year? Or does it make more sense to make equipment that can go over a 3-inch bump, not get
And
stuck
there
in a
we
parking
go.
lot pothole?
So that answers the question of why'd you decide to invest so much time and effort into such an ambitious approach? And it comes down to common sense. Common sense. I mean, it's unbelievable how simplistic the approach was on something again that has already been established. Open source for software showed us that people could do this and download this and be able to use software. Like a good example is the music software for GarageBand. GarageBand was an open source music to be able to create music on on your computer. GarageBand is one of those that was an open source thing, and it took over. There was more people that were able to create on their own at their home and give top-notch sound, and really that changed it. And now the independent studios, there were tons of them around, music studios, they're closed now
So here's the
because
thing.
that
Here-
made
here-
it available.
Here's the further thing about open hardware. It's completely modifiable.
Hmm.
Um, in the early days of 3D printing, we heard more talk than we saw anything of 3D printing. Then someone released an open hardware design for a 3D printer. Every single 3D printer you see today, including the ones that are 3D printing steel and concrete and NASA's zero-G 3D printer, all based on that one freely given away design.
And it's not like people don't stand a chance to make money off of this open source thing. It
Correct.
opens up the market for competition,
Yes.
which will allow prices to be fair. Because eventually, like I said, you're going to have issues. I think this is just my little concern for everything that you guys are doing. I feel like where legislation is going to screw with the movement and this whole concept of open hardware sharing is that they'll attach it somehow to safety concerns.
Yeah. That's great. How about the safety concerns in the industry?
I know
Top
exactly.
30 most dangerous
Exactly.
consumer goods. So do you remember the Crip Crawl?
I don't remember
I,
something called the Crip Crawl. No.
oh. So I mean, you keep talking about the ADA. I figured you would know what the Crip
Are
Crawl
you
was.
talking about when they climbed Washington, the stairs in Washington? People
That
got
is,
out of their wheelchairs and
oh,
went.
it's more than that. It's more than that. It started with taking over a municipal building, and I think it was uh, Berkeley. somewhere in California, right, for accessibility reasons in California. And they shut down the streets of New York City with wheelchairs, and then they did the same thing in DC.
Hmm.
And that's what made George Bush a
Dustin Dart
Republican.
was a huge advocate for that and a proponent. Yeah.
And that movement started in a summer camp for those with disabilities right here in New York, by
And
the way.
and that movie is called Crip Camp,
Yes, it
actually.
is.
And some of the
Um,
people I just
right.
inducted into the Hall of Fame were in that movie.
So I want to point this out though. People with disabilities shut down major cities, took over municipal buildings, and all January 6th did was smear feces on the wall. Um, we can do this. I have a network right now so vast that if they come after us the way you're worried about, I'm for it. I'm here for it. I want it. Bring it. I'll go at the front
I
of the
love you,
line.
Tom. This is
Shoot me with
why.
a tear gas. I don't care. This is inhumane. It's disgusting.
That's right.
Someone has to stand up.
Dude, I'm honored to be a friend of yours, and I'm super excited about everything you're doing. It all sounds great, right? The idea of open source and doing all this kind of stuff, but how
Mhm.
complicated is this technology to assemble? Won't it take like engineers to make this happen for every chair built?
I have an ex-girlfriend whose 10-year-old was teaching himself advanced robotics on YouTube.
Hmm.
We work with STEM centers. There's one in Arizona. We were talking to the president. We are telling him, all the kinds of parts and technology that go into the endurance, and he got this real inquisitive face, right? He was thinking, and he called this 16-year-old kid who was into robotics from across the shop, told him what we told him, and asked him how long it would take him to put it together if he had all the parts in front of him. The kid said 3 weeks. One 16-year-old child can outperform government programs, insurance companies, and global corporations.
From the idea of he needs a chair to build it and delivered.
Correct.
Now, in your documentary, I noticed there's also a point in there. You guys got one disassembled on a table. This expo is 2 days, and in 2 days, right? You guys were able to put this together.
The expo was 4 days. We put it together in the first 2 days, and we let them try it the next 2 days.
Yeah, because there's one
Uh,
point in there, and they're all putting it together, and you're like, yeah, stop back later. You guys will be able to take this for a spin. That's
yeah.
insane. From nuts and bolts 2 days later to a fully functioning and might I say badass mobility device. This
It's also
thing,
very safe, right?
yeah,
It
safe
very
airbags.
safe.
I mean, just it had everything. And
I want
airbags, I
to,
don't mean like airbags are going to blow up
right,
in your face, but to cushion the ride, especially
right.
for somebody with osteogenesis imperfecta.
Or a
It's
spinal injury or
that's right. Yeah,
osteoporosis
like I
or
said,
just otherwise frail.
my dad couldn't even ride on a boat because of the waves. There was no
Yeah.
shock absorption, and he just lost so much of what he loved to do in his life. Simple adaptations like this in the bottom of his seat would have made a big difference.
I
Now,
want to I want to talk about the safety aspect of this
yeah, yeah.
chair. Uh, so I'm not only the founder and the president, but I am the crash test dummy.
I was waiting for you to say I'm also a hair club member, but go ahead.
I don't need that.
Yeah,
Um,
I do, however. I'm not gonna turn around.
that's why I was a good politician. I had great hair.
Hmm.
Um, so because I am testing constantly, 24/7, right? Um, we're doing a lot of things to the chair and mistakes happen, right?
Hmm.
I can tell you that any one of these wheels can fall off and roll away, and I won't tip over or be harmed. I've experienced that.
Yeah.
I can tell you that an awful lot can go wrong with it, and it won't harm me.
Hmm.
Every other wheelchair that I'd had, if something went wrong, I was hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, and it just, I mean, again, one of the questions we were going to talk about was, what harm does this actually have the potential to stop? But I think it's been underlined already.
Right.
You know,
So now we talk about customization. Um, this is more specific to manual wheelchairs because paraplegics end up in manual wheelchairs more often than not. I have run into people with an ill-fit manual wheelchair that cause pressure on the back of their legs so that they had to then have surgery to correct their vascular system,
Mm,
right? So it's preventative medicine to have something that's adjustable without waiting on someone to come out 6 weeks later, right?
right. Yeah.
Um, when we Don, if you break your leg, right, as you go through the healing process, your doctor's going to tell you to start using it as soon as you're comfortable.
That's right.
Use it or lose it. You know what they tell
Hmm.
someone in a wheelchair? Not that. Sit still, eat your Pop-Tarts, watch your
Enjoy
cable
the
TV.
decubitus and everything else that comes with it vascularly.
Please
Yeah.
slowly rot to death and get out of the society's way.
Yeah, as your muscles
Yeah.
atrophy and all the other things. My mom just went through this. She had a double knee. She had one knee done, and then she had to have a second knee done. She was about 4 hours from her home in North Carolina when they decided, hey, you know what? We should put her in an intensive rehab, and that'll help expedite the process of her healing. She goes to that rehab. It was a nursing home. She not only didn't get any of that, they put her in an attends and told her to ring us when you soil them. They weren't picking her up. They weren't doing so. Now she's in a battle to try to regain her ability to walk because she had atrophied. She had all kinds of other secondary issues because of that time just sitting in a
Yeah.
bed unattended. That's the reality, folks. And I've heard a lot of. Again, I'm not picking on young folks. I'm just saying, like, we kind of tend to believe what the mass population believes. So as I hear, oh, they have insurance and they have these programs for this. Well, they don't have to. You have no idea the reality, folks, until you're in the middle of it. And then guess what? Too late. It's already happening to you. But what you're doing is inspiring people, Tom, to realize that they can take this up and do something about it. And part of my theme of my show, as I talked with you earlier, is about empowering the average everyday person to realize they can make extraordinary changes in their own lives and the lives of others if they just clearly define what it is and don't look at obstacles, look at the next path forward. And that is
Yep.
exactly what you've been able to do with the what was it, Mobility Independence Foundation,
Correct.
right? The myth. So,
Yeah, we're miffed.
yeah, and this is a we're miffed. This is a essentially a pilot program to show that this is doable. And I know it's going to inspire a lot of other techs and a lot of other people. And folks, we will be announcing when the release of this is. It's already won a lot of awards, but I know you're going to be in Europe showing the documentary in 26, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
then
in April of 26.
right after that, we're going to be able to release this and do that. Hopefully, I'll talk with your editors and you and see if we can even get a squeak out of it. I just would love just a teaser trailer so that we could get some interest in this because it's an amazing documentary. It's so well done as far as the pacing, the movement, the purpose, the people, the credibility, and the fact that this was just some guy who was sitting out in the middle of the woods in New York who has been beaten down, ignored, left to die for years on end without any kind of assistance, who got pissed off enough to do something about it. And that in itself, my friend, is super inspiring. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show. Wasn't just to push this amazing documentary, but to prove that when you have a vision in yourself and you realize that I can do something about it, and you do, that changes the world. That changes the way people think. And I'm happy to know you, buddy.
Thank you, Doug, and I appreciate that. I want to remind people that I'm just an impoverished barefoot farm boy in a wheelchair,
Hmm.
and I did this. I networked about people with the skills that I didn't have that I needed. I put them together, and we solved the problem.
Hmm.
Right? You can solve your problem, whatever it is.
Yeah,
You can join us in solving this problem, or you can go out and solve your own problem.
that's right.
But
But
the minute you stop asking other people to do it for you is the minute you find your own traction and freedom.
that's perfectly said, man. Now we're about to wrap up the show, but I do want to ask, if somebody is listening to this and they're like, "Hey, man, I want to be a part of this." How could they reach out to either you, the foundation? What kind of assistance, what kind of help could you use to further this?
Wow. Right now, because we have experienced so much exponential growth, we need money. Everything happens with money.
Hmm.
And I hate to put it that way. I don't like asking people for money. Um,
This is bigger than just an individual
right,
cause, though, Tom. This
right.
is something that's fueling, like I said, a pilot program that proves your modality of doing this is possible. And it's gonna slap the crap out of a lot of the insurance and like you said, the IPs, uh, to realize that they're gonna have to change their ways, man. They're gonna have to either A, make their stuff more affordable or jump on the bandwagon and join you.
We've already kind of ticked off some of the bigger companies. They don't like us.
Mm.
Um, but I'm here for it.
Well, where would they
Um,
contact you, Tom, if they
right.
wanted to reach out?
So you can find more information at THEMIF, that's F as in Frank.org. That is our website. You can email me, Thomas at THEMIF.org. And I do actually respond to my emails, folks.
Yes, you do.
In fact, I took one the other week. Um, we talk about these barriers to the system actually doing what it's supposed to do. And one very adamant go-getting mother of a disabled 5-year-old was told that her 5-year-old would not be approved for what he needed. Told by New Motion and a children's hospital and their insurances that he would not be approved for what they already know he needs. And they emailed me. And I happen to have resources right where they live. Uh, so now that is our newest project, which we haven't released or talked about yet. So keep an eye on the website, keep an eye on our social media, which is available at the bottom of that website. That will be coming out soon. Um, Come see the documentary at the Foothills Performing Arts Center on November 7th. The
That's
doors
right.
open at 6. The showing is at 7. And at 8 we have a panel. Myself, my mother, Matt Lacey, uh, Devin Hamilton, our lead mechanical engineer, and I believe somebody else, Don. Who's that?
Oh, me. Yeah, yeah, I'll be there. Yeah. And look, I'm so excited to be a part of it. You're bringing something so powerful to my local community that will empower and inspire others to do like you have done. They're going to see that this path makes more sense than beating your head across
Yep.
all these legislative processes trying to make impact, because I swear anytime you ever get something that or they concede, they will make up for it in another bill that undoes what they just
So
gave.
yeah, I want to talk about this right for repair movement that's happening too. It has been somewhat successful with things like John Deere equipment, right?
Well, let's just
California,
define that. The right to repair, meaning currently right now, your warranty would be invalidated because you have tried to repair it yourself.
correct.
And so this right to repair is to undo that.
Yeah, it's a little more than just a warranty though, but it's also available the availability of the information you need to do the repair.
That's right.
It's digital locks on electric components. It is technically a felony to break your own digital lock on your own piece of equipment
That
so that
you
you can
own.
repair it. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So California passed a right to repair your wheelchair bill as well. Um, and there are lobbyists at play, as always, right? And this is where our political system dies, folks. It's all with lobbyists.
Hmm.
There is a entity out there. I forget what the letters stand for, but it's NCART, NCART. They represent the industry essentially and pose as a nonprofit. Um, they lobbied against that California right to repair bill to the point where it was passed. You have the right to repair your wheelchair except for your joystick, except for your wheel, except for your motor, except for your seating system until there is nothing left to repair. But these politicians get to say, "We passed a right to repair bill. Aren't
Yay.
we so wonderful?"
Yep.
And what that was money. That was backdoor money. Always is.
Yeah, of course. There's
Um,
too many interest in. I mean, look, again, if you
yeah,
came up with a new form of energy, there's so many people that stand to lose
we already
income
have
out of
done.
it.
We already
Oh,
have
I
done.
know that since the days of Tesla when he
Look
built
up
Warden
thorium.
Cliff Tower, man.
Thorium is safe nuclear we could have had since the 70s.
Yeah.
Um,
There's no
But
interest in that. Our infrastructure is built around that, and to undo it would
right.
just be political suicide for most of the candidates that are in there now.
And I'm going to be perfectly clear. I'm a capitalist. I am a capitalist, but I am not a cronyist. And when we talk about capitalism, we need to make that separation because today's capitalism in this country is not capitalism. It is cronyism. You might call it corporatism. And now, the way it's been looking, it's getting closer and closer to communism. And if we're to have an effect, right, we need to recognize that next generation's politicians are our children. And we need to lead by example in our own communities with our own things in our own ways, in every way we can. If you want the next generation's United States of America politicians to be better than what they've been, you need to teach those around you how to not be so dependent.
Mm,
If you're going to depend on someone, make that a loved one, make that a neighbor, make that a community initiative. Do not make that a government program. That is how they capture you.
hmm It's great stuff. Folks, I want to thank you for listening to the Empower Hour, and I hope you will continue to listen in every week. You can find the Empower Hour on Spotify, Apple Pods, iHeartRadio, and everywhere podcasts are found. And if you'd like to reach out to me for any reason, you can do so at empowerhournow@gmail.com. Mr. Tom Queter, it has been a privilege not only to know you, but also an honor to have you on the show. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for contributing what you have. I look forward to the nationwide release, worldwide release, and we'll continue to check in and see what else may develop in your crusade. Is there any last words you want to say?
Come on out to the Foothills Performing Arts Center on November 7th.
That's
The
right.
admission is free. You can find a event on their Facebook page. You can find a link for e-tickets somewhere.
Yeah, yeah,
I
you
think it's
will
in there.
find that at foothillsperformingartscenter.org. And again, you are at the MIF, THEMIF.org. They can reach you at tom at
Nope,
themif.org.
Thomas. Thomas.
Thomas. Okay,
Yes.
Thomas.
We have too many Toms, so I have to be Thomas.
Right on. Tom Queter, thank you so much for joining us, man. I cannot wait to get this edited and out there so people can get a taste of what they're going to see in that documentary. And much luck to you, buddy. We'll talk soon.
If we can do better, we should.
We will. Thanks again, Tom.
Right now, thank you for having me.
All right, man. Bye bye.